I cannot improve upon what St. Mark has written, but we will make a few comments here and there and in between. It was 2 days before the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The chief priests and the scribes were looking for a way to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. For they said, not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people. While he was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment of nard. And she broke open the jar and poured the ointment on his head. But some were there who said to one another in anger, why was this ointment wasted in this way? For this ointment could have been sold for more than 300 denarii. Remember, that would be 300 days' wages for the average person. A lot of money could have been sold for. And the money given to the poor. Now, do you really think they were worried about the poor? No, it says in one place, this is Judas. He was not worried about the poor. Judas was the treasurer for Jesus and for the 12. Now, he was a crook, and that was what he had in mind. He wanted to steal that money. But Jesus said, let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, and you can show kindness to them whenever you wish. But you will not always have me. We want to help the poor. We want to do everything we can to alleviate poverty. But we're always going to have the poor. Jesus not always going to be dwelling amongst us. We need to remember that. She has done what she could. She has anointed my body beforehand for its burial. Truly I tell you, wherever the good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her. And it is. Then Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went to the chief priests in order to betray him. When they heard it, they were greatly pleased and promised to give him money. So he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. Remember, Jesus said he had to be betrayed. Woe to the man that did it. But he had to be betrayed, and it was Judas who would do it. And remember, he was betrayed by a man who was his friend, a man who lived with him for 3 years, who sat at his feet, who learned from him for 3 years. His friend. He betrayed him. On the first day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, his disciples said to him, where do you want us to go and make the preparations for you to eat? The Passover. Very important meal for the Jews. Very important. The Seder meal. It's what we were hoping to do. We're just going to reenact it. We can't really do a meal, but we can reenact it and see what Jesus ate the way it was for them. Very important for them. Remember, this is the Passover. Moses with the children of Israel leaving Egypt, getting ready. That night that the death angel came, and they would put the blood over top the door mantle, and it said God would make the death angel pass by and would not affect that home. It was a terrible thing, but this was a celebration of that. So he sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him, and wherever he enters, say to the owner of the house, the teacher asks, where is my guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there. So the disciples set out and went out to the city and found everything as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he came with the 12. And when they had taken their places and were eating, Jesus said, truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me. They began to be distressed and to say to him, one after another, surely not I. He said to them, it is one of the 12, one who is dipping bread into the bowl with me. For the Son of Man goes as it is written of him. But woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born. While they were eating, he took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to them, and said, take, this is my body. You got to do something with those words. Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them. And all of them drank from it. He said to them, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many." That's what we do when we partake of the body and blood of Christ. You must do something with these words. It's not just a memorial. Yes, we do it in memory. But it is not just a memorial as many people think. This is my body. This is my blood. Present tense. You've got to do something with it. That's why we believe that the body and the blood of Christ are surrounded by the presence of Christ, in, under, around the elements. It's a wonderful thing, and we receive the grace of God through this wonderful gift that is being given to us through Jesus Christ. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. Truly I tell you, I will never drink again of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God. It's going to be a big celebration one day when we get to have meal with Jesus again. When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered." You know, we give Judas a hard time. Yes, Judas betrayed him, but they all betrayed him. They all deserted Jesus. Every one of them. They all ran like rabbits on that day and that evening. And you know what? We would have too. We would have too. "But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even though all become deserters, I will not." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this day, this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said vehemently, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all of them said the same. Always remember this. Listen to people's words, but watch their actions. Words are cheap. People say anything, but their actions is what truly counts. On this night, they were all deserters, and they all betrayed Jesus on this night. The difference between them and Judas Iscariot is they sought forgiveness later, and they did turn, and later they have seen the risen Christ, and they are emboldened, and they actually all do die for Jesus. "But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Even though all become deserters, I will not." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this day, this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said vehemently, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all of them said the same. They went to a place called Gethsemane. And he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." Gath means press. This is the olive press. This is where there is an olive grove. And this is where they would press the olives. Have you ever worked a press? I've done it with apples, and you press down to make cider, and you just grind it down, and you keep grinding. Jesus is being pressed here. He is being ground upon in this place. This is an allegory for what is happening to Jesus on this very night, and we will see it. "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. You see that the pressing is now beginning. The stress, the anxiety, all of knowing what is happening is bearing down upon him at this time. Remember this, that when you suffer anxiety, when you suffer through stress, when the weight of the world is pressing down upon you, Jesus has already been there and been through it. He knows what you are going through, and he will go through it with you. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba, Father," which means Daddy God, or the motherly father, the fatherly mother. It is a wonderful term for Jesus to call the Father this. The loving hand of the Father nurturing him, being there for him. "Father, for you all things are possible." Yes, all things are possible for God. We have heard that many times. And he asked this, "Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." Remember this, the cup did pass from Jesus, but he had to drink it. There was no other way. Sometimes we want things to pass, but sometimes if you want to go through something, that's what must happen for you to get it over with. You must go through it, and Jesus will go through you with it. He will go through you with it. He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a third time and said to them, Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough, he said. The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up. Let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand. Immediately while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. And with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and scribes and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard. You ever heard of the kiss of death? This is the way people greet in different places of the world. Even men, they'll give a kiss on the cheek. Well, this time it was the kiss of death for Jesus. So when he came, he went up to him at once and said, Rabbi, Rabbi, teacher, and kissed him. And they laid hands on him and arrested him. But one of those who stood near drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. I don't think he was trying to cut his ear off. I think he was trying to hit his head. I think he was trying to cut his head in half or cut it off. And the guy moved and he hit his ear. Then Jesus said to them, Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me, as though I were a bandit? Jesus is not a bandit. Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. Jesus said, You could have come and got me anytime. Why are you coming out here now to get me? But let the scriptures be fulfilled. All of them deserted him and fled. Everybody left Jesus. He was all alone, and he had to go through this alone. A certain young man was following him, wearing nothing but a linen cloth. They caught hold of him, but he left the linen cloth and ran off naked. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes were assembled. Peter had followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he was sitting with the guards, warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death. But they found none, for many gave false testimony against him, and their testimony did not agree. Some stood up and gave false testimony against him, saying, We heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another, not made of hands. But even on this point, their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you? But he was silent and did not answer. Remember, it says he went silently as a lamb goes to the slaughter. Again, the high priest asked him, Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? Jesus said, I am. And they knew exactly what he meant. You remember Moses in the Meridian desert standing before the burning bush? God giving him his marching orders, if you will. And what does Moses ask? He says, What is your name? And God says, My name is Yahweh. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the Tetragrammaton it's called. I am that I am. I will be that I will be. I am that I am. Every time Jesus says I am, they know what he's saying. It's a riddle. I am. He says, I am here. He claims to be God. People say Jesus never claimed to be God. Phooey on anybody that says that. He did. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds in heaven. Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard this blasphemy. What is your decision? All of them condemned him as deserving death. Some began to spit on him, to blindfold him and to strike him, saying to him, Prophesy. The guards also took him over and beat him. The Greek word is where we get the root for pugilism here, boxing. They beat up Jesus. They punched him out. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she stared at him and said, You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth. But he denied it, saying, I do not know or understand what you are talking about. And he went out into the forecourt. Then the cock crowed. And the servant girl, on seeing him, began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. Then after a little while the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." But he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know this man you are talking about." At that moment the cock crowed for the second time. Then Peter remembered that Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. But Peter gets repentance later. As soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and the scribes and the whole council. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him, "You say so." Then the chief priests accused him of many things. Pilate asked him again, "Have you no answer? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further reply, so that Pilate was amazed. Now at the festival he used to release a prisoner for them, anyone for whom they asked. Now a man called Barabbas was in prison with the rebels, who had committed murder during the insurrection. So the crowd came and began to ask Pilate to do for them according to his custom. Then he answered them, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that the chief priests had handed him over. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release Barabbas for them instead. You see, we are Barabbas. We're Barabbas. Me and you, we're Barabbas. When there was a sacrifice made, there was one lamb slaughtered and there was one that was let go. Barabbas was the one who was let go, and we are Barabbas. We are him. We should have died. We should have been sacrificed on that cross, each and every one of us. But the sacrificial lamb named Jesus took our place. It's a wonderful thing to think about. It was us that deserved to die that day, just as Barabbas should have died. But the chief priests, what did they do? They stirred up the crowd. Remember the fickle crowd? Yeah, just a little while, a few days before, "Oh, we love you, Jesus." Now they're getting stirred up by the chief priest to have them release Barabbas. Pilate spoke to them again. "Then what do you wish me to do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Why, what evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released Barabbas for them. And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Flogging was a horrible thing. Most people didn't even last through that. Jesus you could probably see into his lungs from the outside. It was a terrible thing to have to go through, and the blood loss, the pain that he went through just at that. It's astounding. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it upon him. And they began saluting him, "Hail the King of the Jews." They struck his head with a reed, spat upon him, and knelt down in homage to him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to be crucified. Yeah, that blood and everything, all those body fluids would have congealed with that robe. That's why we wear purple. That's why purple during Lent. And when they ripped it off, it would have opened afresh all those wounds that he had. And they led him out to be crucified. They compelled a passerby who was coming in from the country to carry his cross. It was Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus. Then they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified 2 bandits, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha! You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross. In the same way the chief priests along with the scribes were also mocking him among themselves and saying, he saved others, he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now. And you know he could have, but he stayed there for you and for me. So that we may see and believe. Those who were crucified with him also taunted him. When it was noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? This is the absence of presence, the presence of absence. This is our cry, just as Jesus, when you feel God forsaken. My God, where are you? Have you ever cried like that? You wonder, where are you, God? That is our cry. Jesus understands what that is like. When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, listen, he is calling for Elijah. And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick and gave it to him to drink, saying, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from the top to the bottom. Remember, we talked about that. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, truly this man was the Son of God. This is a hardened Roman soldier who has done this multiple times. But yet this time he says, this really was the Son of God that we have killed. There were also women looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James the younger, and of Joseph and Salome. These used to follow him and provided for him when he was in Galilee. And there were many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem. Thank God for the ladies, because they're the ones who did not forsake him. They are the ones that were there even until the bitter end. When evening had come, and since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate wondered if he were already dead. And summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he had been dead for some time. When he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the body to Joseph. Then Joseph brought a linen cloth, and taking down the body, wrapped it in a linen cloth and laid it in the tomb that had been hewn out of the rock. He then rolled a stone against the door of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where the body was laid. The gospel of our Lord.